Hello again, Michael here with another video. This time we're starting a new series called Arizona. This first video is from Arcosanti.
Looks kind of like this. And we add the plaster to the, or not the plaster, but we add the slip cast into the plaster mold, and the plaster will actually dehydrate the slip, actually, as it's being sort of dehydrated. And once it's about 1/4 inch thick, sort of this film, and when it's about leather hard, that's when we'll suction out any excess with a little turkey baster, and we'll get something that looks like this when we take apart the mold. Now this has already been hardened, so it is not this hard when it's taken out, but when it's leather hard and we pull it out, that would be the time that our artisans will take different styli and start carving into the bell mold. And then once it is carved into, we apply different oxide finishes to get something that looks kind of like this, all those beautiful earth tones and that sort of design. Now the other method that we use is called silt casting, which has some similarities and some differences. So if you all want to come take a look, this is silt. It is a combination of clay and sand, which is derived from our riverbeds actually in the Arcosanti River. So the process we use for this is we take little reverse molds kind of like these, and we will press them into the silt. We'll repeat the process where we pour in the silt, the slip cast, and then once we repeat that whole process, some of those earth textures and patterns and colors will be picked up by the slip, and we'll get something that looks kind of like this, a little more earthy, a little more rocky. And then one more last cool little fact about this space is actually very similar method of actually casting these bells was actually used to design the apse, which is basically a half dome basically, or a 1/4 of a sphere. So these were all laid flat, actually. This is laid flat in a silt bed with different pigments in the silt. And then with a butter knife, they took like a little butter knife to carve those little details that you see. And then once the concrete was poured on top and dried, they were lifted into place on a scaffold. So that is how this was constructed, actually. It's like an enormous bell. And then also a cool thing for incorporating some passive solar strategies. During the summer, the sun is directly overhead and will come straight down, so the entire space will be shaded. And then during the winter, the sunlight will hit the back of the apse so that our artisans can work year-round. It's very cool. Any questions while we're here? Yeah.
The guy that designed all this living space, when did he die? Where did he come from?
He passed away in 2013. He came from Torino, Italy. He came over to the U.S. Probably around the 40s, I want to say, right around 40s, 50s. And he first studied at Torino Polytechnic University in Italy. Came over to the United States and was actually working in ceramics first, actually. He designed a couple of small architectural commissions, including the Dome House here in the U.S., but then he moved on to sort of grander scale projects, including Cortes in Paradise Valley and Arcosanti, really his life's work.
So he was kind of wanted to make this area as a biosphere, kind of like the biosphere, but
not exactly like biosphere, but we have been affiliated in some regards with some exhibitions or some events that Biosphere was a part of and Arcosanti is also a part of, so there are some affiliations, but trying to. There are a lot of things that we did and tried to incorporate early on in the sort of design of Arcosanti that we're sort of reassessing now. One of those, for example, being solar power. At the time that we were trying to pursue solar energy in the 90s, it was not like the technology that it is today. So we're sort of reconsidering it, and there's also a solar farm actually that is being built right next door to us. So we're trying to see if we can sort of get in on that sort of deal. Use sort of bronze a really cool way of actually naturally heating the space and not letting all that heat go to waste. Any questions?
Yeah. Are you able to tell us who the workers are and how they get here and what kind of specialties they have, or do they learn?
Oh my goodness. People come here with all different kinds of backgrounds and specialties. For the most part, most people who are staff here come through the workshop program, where you spend a month here working for a department and learning a lot about Arcosanti's departments, design philosophy, the ecology, and so on and so forth. And after you finish your workshop, you join the Arcosanti alumni, and that opens the door to residency, staffing, and sort of that whole area, if that sort of makes sense. So for me, I did archives. So I did architectural documentation, research, photography, videography. My background's in architecture, but we have residents here that have done everything from accounting to ecology to bartending to just a variety of different backgrounds. And some will, pick up new skills. We just had a ceramicist join us. Previously he was in waste management. So lots of really cool, diverse backgrounds and really cool opportunities. There's usually like a little bit of a, not quite apprenticeship, but sort of like a little training time. It's usually a few weeks where you learn how to assemble the bells, basically starting with the wire screws, basically. So even just making like these pieces, and then you work up to doing larger assemblies like this, and then assembling the whole bell, and then attaching the pins, and then eventually you will get to a point where you do the bronze, which will be happening very soon. So that's sort of like the process in which you work it up, and then once you're comfortable enough, you're able to start doing your own designs in the bells. So for the most part, everyone here works around minimum wage. We pay out of our paycheck, we get a co-use fee that gets taken out. That co-use fee is kind of like a membership fee, and that's our replacement for rent. And that includes all of our utilities and Wi-Fi, rent, all of that. We are a non-profit organization, so there is that component to it as well. There are some other things that some residents will pick up on the side, though, they want to make a little extra cash. For example, some residents are in the artist co-op. So in the gallery, in the little corner where you saw some like the clothes and other pottery items and paintings, those are artists who make, those are some of the artisans who are staff here that make art and want to sell it. For me on the side, I'm also the resident bartender actually, so at nighttime, sometimes on like Tuesday, Friday nights, I'll bartend and I make tips on that. I also work in a cafe, so I get tips from that as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities for residents to make a little money on the side. So. It varies so much. So I've only been here for about 4.5 months. Our longest standing resident has been here since 1978. So anywhere between that and then, people sometimes leave for a couple years, come back for a few. Some people come seasonally and have been so for a number of years. So it really, really depends. Some people just do the workshop and leave. So any other questions?
Is there an application process?
Not exactly a waiting list, but the application process is sort of that workshop, because after a month you do get to know the people who are doing the workshop and the work they do and their contribution to the community. After which, if you are interested in living here, you'll submit a letter of intent, which is kind of like your application. It's your statement of what you plan to deliver to the community and so on and so forth. So now we have to remain quiet they're going to bring the bronze out to do the pour. About a 2,400 degree ceramic crucible. They'll be coming through, so yeah, you'll be able to see. originally comes from north of Chicago, actually. So about an hour and a half north of Chicago, if you're familiar with it. This is sort of like our town square at Arcosanti. This is where we have our morning meetings, where we talk about the agenda for the day. If it is your birthday, we will sing it very loudly and annoyingly. This is also constructed actually very similar to the ceramics apps, actually. So all of these panels, actually, the bulbs were constructed in 12 separate panels, about 13,000 pounds each, and cast into silt beds, actually, and then lifted into place with a crane and scaffold. Also silt cast, so you get some of those earthy textures. Small difference between the two. This one has a concrete center beam. That was a pain in the rear end for the construction team trying to cast and get it in place. North side. So, to my right over here is the resident bar. That is the Arco Mart. That is where I will bartend sometimes. As we got a little pool table in there, a little mini bar, darts, and that's where we like to hang out at the end of a long day. To my left over here, that is the landscape shed. Keep up our equipment for including our own trees, or taking care of the landscape around us, or taking care of bushes, things like that. And then all the way at the far end is the lab building. That is where we have our maintenance department. A lot of things were made custom at Arcosanti, so anything from doors to windows to plumbing, anything needs to be fixed. Fixed over maintenance. On the second floor of the maintenance building is the lab studio space. So there are a bunch of different shared labs that can be used for different sort of clubs or different artistical sort of crafts maybe the residents want to participate in. So we have over there sewing studio and a couple of 3D printers if we need to 3D print anything. And then last little cool bit about this space is attached to this side, back end, and right over here where the 3 little holes are, those are actually full-size family homes actually. So we have large families that are living in all of these spaces actually. So more mixed use. Any questions while over here? It varies. It varies so much I cannot give the exact number. They vary from size to which even with doors, sometimes studio spaces, even smaller. Sometimes that can be amphitheater, which will be our next stop. So it really varies. Any other questions? Yeah.
Single people or married couples and families?
Married couples, families, single people, all of the above. About 30. It's about average. 30 to 40. Yeah.
Where did the children go to school?
So the kids here have been going to Orm, which is a private school down the road. However, I heard that might be closing soon, so I think the next closest school is in Mayer. I want to say it's Mayer Public School system. So I think there have been some home
He's doing 360s and
yeah, I remember. I remember you. So, yeah, very good question. Yeah, so Some of those things are called grocery. So, for example,
Look at things that hold on snake catcher.
yeah,
Done a few. Lots of things. I should be like those, make sure they're already fertilized.
Medical things, I think is included in this, but that is actually
I spent a lot of time.
So, welcome everybody to the Collie Solari Amphitheater, named in honor of Collie Solari, Paulo Solari, architect's wife. She was a music educator in her life, and so when she did pass away in about the 80s, this space was dedicated to her. So this entire sort of amphitheater can host about 500 people comfortably, or 2,500 people very uncomfortably standing up. I have been here to see that, and everyone still gets a very good view, but it is definitely very packed. Some cool little features about the amphitheater, right down below us, sort of where it dips down, that is actually a rainwater collection basin. So all the rainwater that gets collected in this basin below us, this moat, all gets sent to the agriculture department where they can water their crops. And then running down the center here is actually a water feature. It's a little waterfall actually. So during the summer, we'll lift off those plywood boards and run water down and it cools down the space. I have heard that it can be a place humid too, but I have not been here to witness either one or it running yet, so I'm very excited to see it run again. And then right behind me is the music center. That is where we have our residents sort of hang out and we can do jam sessions in there. There's a grand piano. We actually have a resident band. If you're at all interested, check out Earth Service People. We have a couple of Foundry members actually that are part of that band actually. Very cool music. And then a couple of other little guest rooms actually are hidden in here as well for overnight volunteers, or if any part-time residents or part-time people just need a place to stick around just for a night or two. You've got space. And then behind y'all, that is the East Crescent. So these are all of our departments and some dorm-style apartments and studio-style apartments. So on the first floor, I'll work my way around starting from my right. So all the way to my right is the resident gym. That is where we work out to lift that 150 pounds crucible. Right next to that is our community library and free thrift called Ferguson's. So if it is winter and we did not bring coats, we can probably grab one at Ferguson's. If we need a Halloween outfit and we don't have anything, there's probably something hiding in Ferguson's. And then next we have the agriculture department. I'm just skipping over restrooms. The agriculture department, that's where we have storage for all of the agriculture department materials and things, especially for harvest. Right behind here is the archives. That is where we store all of the full-size models, drawings, documents, even the 140-foot charcoal and pastel scroll drawings that the architect designed are all in archives. Right above where it says Library of Esoterica, right over there is the community center. And that is sort of our little, community center. So if we have sort of a lecture, or if we need to have community council meetings, or if we just want to even have a little group dinner, we can have that over at the community center. There's also a little small kitchen over there. So we try to share as many appliances and as many things as we can here to try to cut back on the number of things we have to buy. So if we need a fruit juicer for anything, it's probably in the community center. If we need to use an oven for a community meal, use a community center. And then all the way to my left is that one of those full-size family houses. Second floor, all the way around are dorm-style apartments, with the exception of the one above the restrooms. That is the only solar-powered room actually on site, and that is the solar classroom. That is also one of the best heated rooms actually on site. It's very comfortable. We will host lectures in there. We'll play games sometimes. We'll even have our anime update in the solar classroom. And then third floor, up on this side, you can kind of see it looks a little bit different from the rest of the site in terms of like concrete versus some other material. That is made with steel beam and gypsum board. That is our most recent addition in 2008. That is all studio apartments. One of the hopes and goals is to try to mirror that on the opposite side once we're able to push through permits and get our road paved. So any questions while we're here? Yes.
What was the name of the music group? Earth what?
Earth Surface People. Yes.
What's all this rigging?
I'm sorry?
What's the rigging?
Excellent question. So once upon a time, we actually had a fabric shade structure actually that covered the whole amphitheater. And you can kind of see the concrete structures that kind of look like a couple of fingers. Those have anchor points to attach that fabric shade structure to. So depending on which way you rig the fabric structure, you can accommodate different numbers of people and sort of change the capacity actually. There are even some little loops actually that run around the back. You can see some of them are missing, but some loops actually along the back row. That could be for much more intimate settings or performances, or all the way up grand scale shape. So, yeah, glad you asked. Yes?
How does the community govern itself?
Very good question. So the community is governed, we're kind of moving into more of a horizontal sort of structure, but we are a nonprofit. The way we organize ourselves is we have community council as sort of like our first go-to. Community council is in charge of event planning, putting together sort of group projects, in charge of the community funds and things like that. And that's usually about 8 elected members or so. And then above that is governance, which is kind of like community council in a way, but it's just a little bit more official in terms of policy making and things of that nature. Then there's a CEO, and the CEO is kind of like our ambassador, means sort of like the sort of person in charge of day-to-day operations. He's also always out trying to gather different grants and funds and trying to reestablish connections to old partners of Arcosanti, for example, ASU, and some other partners, the forestry department, and trying to get grants for tree planting, things like that. And then we have the board of directors, who is the overall sort of overseer group that oversees everything at large. And that's about 7, I believe it's about 7 or so members right now, but in the past it's been about 14. Yeah.
So do all of those community people live here?
Everyone on community council lives here, everyone in governance lives here, the CEO lives here, the board does not. The board is pretty scattered for right now, because sometimes they're trying to settle different agreements and different partnerships with other organizations around the U.S. So we do host board meetings here, usually about once or twice a year, right around there.
And how many people did you say currently live here?
About 40. That number increases to roughly about like 40 to 50 when we get a workshop in, for example, and they stay with us for a month. The number drops to usually about 25 to 30 in the summer because it just gets so hot. Hi, Ray. Everyone say hi to Ray.
Hey. And what percentage of food do you produce that is used here? Do you have to purchase out a lot? And what
good question. So the agriculture department sort of is in charge of 2 different greenhouses in our agriculture field and food forest. And in our agricultural fields, last year we were growing Three Sisters, whole wheat, corn, beans, and squash. In our greenhouses, we grow everything from carrots, tomatoes, collard greens, spinach, arugula, oh my goodness, I'm trying to remember, mint, parsley, a lot of different crops, but unfortunately it is not enough to sustain the 40-person population. So what we do instead is we will sometimes host farmers markets here for residents to grab some fresh foods, or if we have a very, very abundant harvest, is we will actually bring into the cafe to use for banquet meals or cafe goods. For a little while we had an Arco green empanada that was made with all Arcosanti green veggies and soups as well, and other delicious things for the cafe and for the public to enjoy. So we try to make do with what we can reasonably do.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions while we're here? All right. We will head over to one of my favorite spots actually on site.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, please press like. If you haven't already, please press subscribe. Thank you.